All right. Welcome to the Actor's Guide podcast to the end of the world. My name's E-Kan and this is my co-host.
Rían Kelly. Did you
say... Wait, what? I said it wrong, right?
You said Actor's Guide podcast to the end of the world.
Okay. I had a feeling that was a little off. Okay. Let me try it again. Hey, guys. Welcome to the Actor's Guide to the End of the World podcast, where we talk about acting in Hollywood in a way people understand. I'm your host, E-Kan and this is my co-host.
Rían Kelly. How you doing?
What's up, buddy?
I'm good, dude.
Make sure you follow us wherever you find your podcast. We're also on YouTube and Substack if you like video. Follow us wherever you find social media. Wait, what's so funny?
I was just laughing at if you like video.
You
like moving pictures. Yeah. We're on Substack.
Yeah, you know. Well, you know, whatever you're into.
Yeah. Do you hate museums because the pictures don't move?
Yeah, exactly. For all of you guys out there that hate museums, we got you covered. At Actors Guide Podcast on social media. Send your emails, comments, actorsguidepodcast@gmail.com. I mean, this is a tongue twister. This is a tongue twister every day. By the way, we had incredible comments about our Jeremy Strong, Kieran Culkin debate.
Yeah.
I don't know if you
Brewed
got
up a little storm, I saw.
We got some fiery comments about the differences between Jeremy Strong and his intense process and Kieran Culkin's go with the flow. I think a lot of actors were going with the traditional route, preferring Jeremy Strong's passion over Kieran Culkin's casual nature.
His folly.
To say the least. Yeah, it's interesting. It
is.
I mean, that's also the difference between social media and society, and also, you know, a lot of what people inside Hollywood and actors actually think. So, anyway. And our sponsor for today's show, Indestructitrailer. Take care of your actors without needing to worry about taking care of your trailer.
These trailers are put to the test and are built to last, no matter who's on the call sheet.
Little Tara, who just got her own Disney show. A A-list starlet who needs room for their entourage. A reality show star with their family of raccoons.
Indestructitrailer has got you covered.
And now comes with a bidet.
For the raccoons.
First off, we're talking about Rob Lowe's comments on his podcast. He had some hard shots fired at LA and the state of Hollywood. He also happens to be shooting a show in Ireland. So he has, you know, a very specific insight. We'll get into that. Also, today is a very special episode. This is episode number 22 for us. For those in the podcast world, there is a statistic about hitting 21 episodes. We're going to get into that. We're going to get into what it's been like to build this podcast from scratch, what we learned, what we didn't, and, you know, maybe you're not building anything or building a podcast, but if you're creative and you're getting worn out from the marathon, this episode's for you. And also, we're going to talk about how that connects to our acting careers.
I mean, it is a marathon, isn't it? Acting. The career is long. The career is long.
So yeah, it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, absolutely. And one more thing I want to add to that is we're going to teach you how to birth a calf. Because it's spring. It's not. We're not going to do that. We're not going to do that.
That's what you've been doing over in Ireland.
Oh, well, I was on a farm a couple of days ago, and that's a
legit farm.
I went up. You know what? I might save it as a hidden gem, but it's probably a gem that a lot of people know about. But
if your gem is how to birth a calf, I have a feeling that a lot of people might not know that.
Strong forearms. That's the key.
Yeah. Well, there's a dirty joke in there somewhere, but we're not going to go there.
No, we're not. Talking about cows. Come on.
So first off, word around town. We both heard this clip, and to be honest, this clip definitely got around. Rob Lowe does not mince words. He was interviewing Adam Scott. He was talking about his show, his game show that he shoots in Ireland. And he made an off comment saying that it's cheaper to fly 100 Americans for this game show than actually shoot across the street in LA at the studios.
This blows my mind. It's a game show.
Yeah,
he's not the only one.
Yeah,
Jamie Foxx does one too. Jamie Foxx shoots a game show here as well.
Oh, that's right. We were talking about Jamie Foxx's show. Thank you for reminding me. We were actually thinking about getting into the story earlier because we heard that there was a game show shooting in Ireland, that they were sending Americans, flying them over to Ireland. We couldn't get we couldn't get a conclusive answer on that, so we didn't really bring up that story. But we just got it from Rob Lowe, the fact that they're sending 100 Americans for his game show that he shoots in Ireland. I got it up mixed up with Rob Lowe, but it was actually Jamie Foxx. You're right. Rob Lowe took shots. He said LA should be fired for what's happening with film and TV.
It's still mind-boggling to me that it's cheaper to do that here than it is in LA.
Yeah. Another example of what we've been talking about, hopefully ad nauseum, because we're trying to get California and we're trying to get LA to do something about it.
But also, I'm okay with Ireland. I'm okay with Ireland doing something about it right now as well, because I have a different perspective here. I have a vested interest in Ireland doing well as well. So Rob Lowe said something interesting as well, because he said he was he was set to do his next show in New York, and that he was ready to go, and then it was going to be shot in New York, so he just pulled it because he didn't want to move to New York. And I was thinking about that, and I was like, okay, I understand that, but also there's so many other people involved in that. Imagine getting cast in a show and the lead is like, I don't want to go to New York to do this, and the whole show gets pulled and it may never come back. That's quite a blow. It's just the way he said it. I was
That's
like,
a really great point.
Wow, there's a lot of people involved in that show. And I understand that he's in a position where he doesn't have to move to New York, so if he doesn't want to, and it, upset his family life and everything else. But also there are a lot of people involved in a show, it was just a little shocking to hear the way he talked about it. I was like, oh, wow.
That's a great point. I was actually going to bring that up, but I didn't even look at it from that side. So real quick about these comments, we'll put the link in the description. Rob Lowe does not mince words, and we would love to be in the position to fire shots like that. Rob Lowe was very vocal during the strikes. He was actively on the streets, picketing. His heart is with LA. This is where his home is. And it's great. We want more stars to be that vocal. I actually thought what you just brought up was the more interesting part of the story, is a lot of crew, especially in Hollywood, was always pointing fingers at A-list stars and saying, hey, you know what? It's about time that Brad Pitt and all the A-listers start fighting to keep productions in Hollywood and start fighting to keep productions in California. If you're a star and if you have power, you really need to start stepping up and leverage that, because we need to keep productions in California. That's what a lot of people on cruise stories and so on is what the narrative is. And you said this, but the deal was already good to go. It was inked. The scripts are ready. They were ready to green light. And they said, we're going to shoot this in New York. And he said, I'm not moving to New York for this.
Yep.
What I thought was interesting was, as powerful as Rob Lowe is, he wasn't big enough to change the studio's decision. I think what I'm getting at is there's no star that's big enough to help the studio's bottom line. If they see it's cost effective to be in New York or Atlanta or Budapest or Ireland, they're going to do it. It doesn't matter what the star is. And unfortunately, us as actors, and even Rob Lowe, as powerful as he is, he doesn't have that power. Now, I don't know, to your point, I don't know if he knew the show was going to poof and magically go away. I think he was also saying, hey guys, we have a bunch of studio lots here. I'm pretty sure we could do this in LA. He probably was intending on doing it in LA, and they just put this out to him, and it might have been a game of chicken, and they didn't bluff.
I see. I didn't realize that. Yeah.
Now that's a decision with him, his family. I mean, we can't speculate on that. But when it comes down to it, the show just magically went away. I'm actually a little surprised that they didn't try to replace Rob Lowe. But the show just magically went away and it went poof. So we don't really know the ins and outs of that, but that's what I gather is a powerful star is not powerful enough to stop the studio's decisions.
You also know of a director who was set to direct a movie in LA and I think was willing to forego his salary to get it made in LA, but it was too expensive and they wouldn't do it. They wouldn't shoot in LA.
On that note, we're just coming out of award season. We've been talking about the finances of all these Oscar films. This is why Brady Corbett makes $0 making The Brutalist. This is exactly why.
Yeah.
They're trying to save as much money. And on top of it, they shot The Brutalist in freaking, Budapest. Adam Scott and Rob Lowe were literally saying, if we made Parks and Rec today, we'd be shooting in Budapest.
Yeah. That's wild. That is wild. And also, Adam Scott just made a movie in Ireland.
They did have very nice things to say about Dublin, which is nice.
Good.
One of these days. I can't wait for the day that we shoot a live podcast, you and me in the same room in Dublin.
Yeah, in Dublin. The Dublin podcast.
Okay, so on this note, as we wrap this up, we do know that there is a lot of positive news coming out of California. 51 projects got approved for the tax credit. So I don't think anyone's taking Rob Lowe's comments as gospel when he was talking about the tax credits. He was talking very loosely. Obviously, California has tax credits, but it's just trying to keep competitive with Atlanta and New York and so on. Someone sent this my way, and it was pretty heartbreaking. Someone sent this video of a director. Her name's Kat Reinhardt. I don't know her personally, but someone sent me her video. She talked about how she got rejected for a tax credit.
Oh.
This round. She got rejected multiple times. And I believe this movie was $10 million.
Okay.
She's ready to go with this movie. $10 million. Her heart and soul is in it. And it got rejected 3 times.
Wow.
And she made this point that, hey, you guys aren't even, there's nothing pleasant about this process. We're trying to bring jobs to California, and we want this to be in LA. And I've never talked to anyone who's actually actively tried to get approved for a tax credit. And she has I'll link her video into the description. But she has a long video talking about the entire process. Yeah.
Does she explain the criteria? Like, on what grounds was it
I don't know if she
rejected,
gets. I don't know. To be honest, I don't think she actually. I don't even think she knows why she got rejected.
Interesting. Okay.
But when you hear that 46 films got approved and she tried 3 times and she didn't, and yet the budget's $10 million and you're trying to bring work to California, I don't know if there's any good reason to get rejected at that point.
Yeah.
So we'll put that video in the description, but dig into that because there are not always rosy stories coming out of LA. And at that point, stay in LA. The petition is trying to get tax credits uncapped.
Yeah.
Just uncap them. And just while we're trying to recover from the fires and everything else, just uncap them and just keep shooting. And if anyone's ready to shoot, let them shoot.
That's interesting. And
so,
on the flip side of that, I know of someone who's trying to get a movie produced in Ireland, and they've been, going through that process. And they were told that it is so busy in Ireland right now that they would have to fly crew in from Eastern Europe to make this movie. So that's how busy it is here. I did see someone post some very strong opinions on this, basically alluding to the fact that the rates here are lower than the US for everybody across the board, and that's why that in a sense they felt like Ireland was getting taken advantage of because they were able to make things so much for so much less here. And then I was talking to someone about it yesterday, and the counterpoint they made to that was like, well, okay, but you raise the rates for everybody and you lose the production. So what's the happy medium? You know what I mean? And it's this balance of, it's brilliant that there's production here. Yes, the rates are a lot lower. So like there's a kind of an ebb and flow of that where it's a delicate balance.
You're completely right, Rían. It's funny. I was totally not going to bring this up. You look at the contract, you look at all the things that we're fighting as a union, and you say, we pushed everyone away because our rates are too high. And the counterpoint is, well, we're trying to get paid a fair wage. Sure, there are always places that are cheaper to shoot, yet are you saying we should not fight for a fair wage and get residuals and get union rates? Now, here's the thing. You're completely right. And this is not only Ireland. I think it's really, I'm glad that you put the opinion of who said that, Because when it comes down to it, you're right. Is it worth having these productions come in and quote unquote take advantage of Ireland? A lot of other people say, look at how much they're bringing in. They're bringing in other industries. They're bringing in, people who are doing props, clothing, laundromats who are doing all the dry cleaning. Look at how much money's coming in. It's not just Ireland. They've been doing it in Asia for years. By the way, did you notice how many Korean shows are on Netflix? Okay. This was not an accident. They were hitting Korea hard for the past 3-4 years, even before Squid Game. Squid Game was the cherry on top, okay? And we know for a fact in Asia, no union restrictions, no nothing. And to be honest, that's another project for us. I'm going to go in the numbers and I'm going to see who gets paid more, Ireland or Korea.
Oh, that's interesting.
And we're going to see who's really going to take advantage of. Because when it comes down to it, these union regulations are not paying residuals, are not paying for a lot of things. And by the way, Korea is starting to think about trying to unionize.
Wow.
This is what's going to happen. Korea's like, hey, you've been tapping us dry. Oh, yeah, Squid Game is also a huge international hit. We're going to start thinking about changing some contracts now. And so when it comes down to it, it's great for the studio to go find the cheapest dollar. You're going to run these places dry. And then eventually everyone's going to fight for a fair wage. Anyway, you just lit me up.
No, that's great. I love this because but I think the measure of it for me is like, if you're a working professional, like, can you make a living from this? I think that's the benchmark.
I think it's a livable profession, but unfortunately, as time goes on, it's going to be livable for a smaller and smaller amount of people. And I think that's the issue that we're having right now.
Yeah, because even on that Cruise Stories Instagram or Facebook page, I mean, you see so many people say, crew member for X amount of years. I had to quit this year because I just wasn't making any money.
It's brutal. That's how most of the older crew members feel. And it's sad. All right. Well, on that cheery note.
I was bringing the jokes.
So let's dig into this. We're going to talk about a couple statistics here that is just kind of eye-opening for podcasts. And it also really applies to anyone building anything creative. Found this out before we started this, but I was always in the back of my mind remembering this. 90% of podcasts don't get past episode 3. Okay.
That's wild.
3 episodes.
Yeah.
That's 1.8 million who quit. This post was from 3 years ago. So just imagine there's more podcasts now. So this statistic is probably even more stark. Of the podcasts that are left, 90% will quit after 20 episodes. That's another 180,000 podcasts that vanish. To be in the top 1% of podcasts, you only need to publish 21 episodes of your podcast.
There you go, guys.
Your competition is not the 2 million podcasts. It's the 20,000 podcasters who didn't quit. Obviously, we're not doing this to pat ourselves on the back, but this is a time to, like we have talked about in past episodes, celebrate the small victories. By the way, a lot of podcasters probably don't even know this quote or don't know this statistic.
No, and I think it's a testament to sort of the shared ethos or the shared sort of goal that both of us got into this podcast for the same reasons, and that was to get free stuff. And you know what? We have not got nearly enough free stuff yet. It hasn't felt like a ton of work to me, to be honest. Like, now I know, to be fair, you do the lion's share of the work involved in this podcast. E-Kan edits the podcast, just in case you don't like the edit. It's him. It's not me. I kind of just show up and talk, which is lovely.
Do a lot of people underestimate how important it is just to show up?
Sure.
Because it gets a little murky when we talk about actors, right? Because we can easily say, what is that benchmark for actors? It was a blessing to have this quote for you and I to start building this. I was like, let's just get to 21 episodes. What does showing up for an actor mean? It means I'm going to still submit myself on Actors Access. I'm going to try to get an agent. Are you going to stay in class? We're going to bring up this metaphor again, but we're talking about the marathon and not the sprint. Cillian Murphy, around the time when he was doing Oppenheimer, he said it took me 20 years to build a career. The real hard work that's not sexy is consistency. And no one is applauding you when it's happening. But in hindsight, consistency looks great. But it's never celebrated when you're actually in it doing it.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? Like the 20-year thing, and I can totally identify with that. What does showing up mean? It probably depends on why you're doing it as well. You know what I mean? Or your experience of it. Like if you're showing up all the time and you're not happy, you know, if you're showing up and you're going to class and you're doing all the things that we're talking about, but you're just not happy and you're just miserable in it, it's probably not worth showing up for. You know what I mean? I think the only reason I've been able to stay in it is because I really enjoy it, and it's kind of I'm sort of obsessed with it. You know what I mean? And
well, Rían, you might be a bad example because you love it too much.
I haven't always shown up in the same way. You know what I mean? There are times and periods in my life where I wasn't doing the amount of work that I do right now, so showing up is kind of, there's gradients of that too.
For actors, so much of our world is so not concrete, and I think that's why it's nice to have this podcast statistic as a parallel. I was goofing around on YouTube before we started this podcast. There are some things that I was lucky enough to learn. Subscribers and views are vanity metrics.
Subscribers and views are vanity metrics. That's interesting.
So this subscribers on YouTube is essentially the same thing as followers on Instagram. So now we're going to talk about growth. Now we're going to talk about metrics as far as how do you know that you're growing? We won't get into the weeds about this stuff, but this is a good parallel for those as an actor. It doesn't matter how many people are subscribed to you. Mm-hmm. The important part is it's going to take you a long while or many episodes to figure out what the F you're even talking about. You have so many other things to worry about. Do not worry about the vanity metrics.
Interesting.
And as an actor, you might be worried about followers and how come no one's following me and blah, blah, blah. Well, first off, maybe focus on your career, getting really good. Denzel Washington says the best marketing is being really good.
Where does the money come into it though? That's
yeah, that's where Rían was. The way that the money is calculated is you need to hit a threshold of subscribers to get monetized.
Okay.
And you get paid depending on how long people are watching.
Oh, so it's not, so yeah, okay. So it really means something.
It does mean something. So if you have something that was super clickbaity and you had a bajillion people followed it and watched you and your video was 5 seconds about some kid tripping on the sidewalk, you were only getting paid for that watch duration and your video was super short and clickbaity.
Oh.
This is the game. They don't know if they want to subscribe yet. They don't know if they like you. Maybe you said something that they might want to watch for 5 minutes. And you have to realize that's really good. This is a great segue because we're going to get into this. The question is what is your brand and what are you selling? And that also goes back to our acting world. I can compare myself to a 6-foot blonde swimsuit model. I could do that all day.
You often do.
But then at what point? But Rían, that's private. What I do in my private time is just between us. And this is actually, a couple of these tidbits actually came from the podcasting Reddit. How long did it take you to get to 1,000 downloads in an episode in the first 7 days? This is not meant to be super inside baseball, but there's a point to this. And someone put a great response. You cannot compare listens with another podcast unless the two podcasts in question are in the same listening space. True crime or comedy podcasts have a much higher ceiling in terms of potential listens. Yet one targeted at woodworkers who exclusively builds wash basins has a completely different potential listen. Some shows will never get to 1,000 listens in the first week, but can be considered quite successful nonetheless. The answer you're looking for is not going to help you. So the answer you seek is not this path. You see how important niche branding it is. It's so much harder as an actor, to be honest, because we go to an audition, we see 15 people just like us, if not 25 people. What are you going to do with these metrics and analytics to tell you if you're growing? Do you count the number of auditions? This is why it's so sometimes harmful to compare yourself to other actors. You can go on Threads or you can go on Instagram and hear other actors having so many auditions. What kind of auditions are they? Are they non-union? Are they commercial? Are they stage? Are they TV? Are they film? You don't know. So what good does it do you? They could be in a different city. And what if the industry is just so slow that your lack of auditions has nothing to do with you? It's just the fact that the industry is slow. This is the problem with most of these metrics and analytics that we use to compare ourselves to other actors. So what if the metric is Cillian Murphy, it took me 20, 30 years to build a career? What if that's the metric?
But podcasts as well is kind of a social thing too, because I find that people like are willing to recommend good podcasts to you as well. They're like, oh, you got to check out this podcast. It's a very kind of it's like books kind of, but it's like, more sharey. Like, oh, you should listen to The Actor's Guide to the End of the World rather than The Actor's Guide to Italian Restaurants. You know what I mean? Like, people will recommend.
That's a great point.
So now, announcing our offshoot, The Actor's Guide to Different Things.
This out there. That's actually a great segue. We've had conversations every so often. Let's just talk about the difference between podcasts and other social media. Mm-hmm. You brought up a great point. It's like sharing a book. I've heard a couple smart people on social media and podcasters say this. One podcast subscriber, according to someone else, is worth 1,000 Instagram followers, is worth 1,000 TikTok followers. You watch TikTok and you watch Instagram, you watch a 30-second video, you get some information. Often you forget who you just watched. You're watching it for a click hit of information and you have no connection to who they are. You're not like, oh my God, I love this TikTok person, blah, blah, blah. It's gone in the algorithm. You're already watching another video. You don't even remember what you just watched. This is a weird form where our episodes are getting to around 30 minutes now.
Yeah.
You come by, you stop by, you have a good listen. You're listening into our conversation. We're in, we want you guys to stop by and check in and have a good time. You're sitting on our conversation. And some of you are sitting in for 30 minutes of this conversation. So just imagine how many times in your life do you actually participate in a long form engagement of a conversation? I love my mom. I do not have, I unfortunately don't talk to my mom. I talk to Rían more than I talk to my mom every week. So if you say that only 10 people listen to my podcast, you have to take into account how great that is. 10 people listen to you speak, and maybe intelligently, or maybe you made them laugh. Just imagine in your life, regardless of what job you are, whatever walk of life, you sat and you spoke, and 10 people were there in front of you listening to you speak. It's actually kind of rare. Let's say that you were pitching someone on, let's say you're a salesperson and you're pitching them on why they should buy this vacuum cleaner. If you're talking to 10 people, that's actually a lot.
Yeah.
And if we were in an audition room, very rarely we're going in person anymore. If you're in an audition room and you say 10 people in front of you and you're acting in front of them, 10 people is actually a lot.
It is.
I have been in those rooms. I had 15 people on 2 small couches regularly. Every time I went to callbacks for this TV show, 15 people on 2 small couches. So let's not lose sight of 10 real people are listening to your podcast for maybe 20 minutes. And that's the power of engagement and this platform.
There you go. We're really doing it. We're really making people listen.
This is not just us patting each other on the back. I'm just kind of this mindset shift. Because there's so few real metrics, whether you're an actor, whether you're a writer, you're trying to create a blog on Substack and what have you. It's a long trudge with very few celebrations and maybe few victories in the beginning you keep going.
I'm always a little surprised when people, when people say, I listened to this episode, I say, I listen to your podcast. I'm always like really kind of taken aback because in my head. And I almost don't know how to react. I almost get a little embarrassed, even though like I'm so appreciative. I'm just like
100%. Let's just remember that even if you're small, and obviously we're still small. We're still a small podcast. Yeah. We're building. We have a lot of fans who appreciate what we're putting out. But when it comes down to it, let's not lose the sight of
free stuff.
Let's not lose sight of that we really need free stuff.
Just anything. Doesn't have to be. It can be hand lotion. Just whatever.
Enough of the congratulations. We're done patting ourselves on the back.
My hidden gem for this week is based off what I said earlier about visiting a farm. And if you're in and around Dublin, Newbridge Farm is fantastic. And I had not been there since I was a kid, and it was excellent. And it's spring, so there was loads of lambs and baby animals, baby ducks. Go and look at these cool animals. The biggest pig I've ever seen. It was, a huge pig. There's a huge pig in there. But yeah, it was great. It was great fun. The grounds of the Newbridge House is lovely, and it's just a really pleasant, it was a really good day. So go to Newbridge House and Farm if you want. And it was only a €5 in. There was a special on from like Tuesday to something. It was a €5.
Wow, okay.
You could see baby
That's
animals
awesome.
and mini horses and an aviary, all kinds of stuff for a €5.
Nice. All right, cool. Yeah, and we'll put the link in the description and all the information. So my hidden gem, I was celebrating a friend's birthday at this bar lounge thing that I never heard of. Apparently it has a huge cult following. It's called the Capri Club. It's in Glendale. I was blown away by the people that were just coming in. It was Saturday afternoon, nonstop. They actually kicked my friends. Well, I mean, I don't want to say kick them out, but my friend's booth was getting so big that we actually moved out to the patio. All these hip people from elder millennials to Gen Zers coming in throughout the day. It was just nonstop all afternoon. So really cool little bar. It's called the Capri Club. Check it out if you're in Glendale or if you're in LA. And it's a good time. Yeah, they had a blast. It was a really fun vibe. So
cool.
That's the Capri Club in Glendale.
Yeah, it is.
So that's our show, everyone. Hope you enjoyed it. Onwards. We'll see you next week to episode number 23.
Absolutely. See you next week, guys.
Well, thanks for watching, guys. If you like what you saw, maybe give a like, maybe subscribe. It helps people find the podcast. Also, if you didn't catch last week's episode, it's right over here. Don't worry, we'll wait.